People think betrayal is loud. Screaming matches, slamming doors, a knife in the back you feel instantly. They're wrong. Real betrayal is quiet. It sits across the table from you, smiles, calls you Dad. My name is Elias Hawthorne, and before everything burned down, I was somebody. In Chicago, that meant something. This city doesn't hand out respect easily. You earn it brick by brick, winter by winter, standing in the wind off Lake Michigan while it tries to shove you backward. I stood my ground for nearly 40 years. I wasn't born into money. My father fixed elevators. My mother cleaned offices downtown after hours. I learned early that buildings weren't just steel and glass. They were promises, shelter, permanence, proof that something could outlast you if you built it right. I worked my way through school with a drafting pencil always in my pocket. Slept in studios, missed weddings, lost friends. But by my late 30s, my name was on projects people pointed at from taxis. By 50, I ran Hawthorne and Company, one of the most respected architectural firms in the Midwest. And by 58, I believed my greatest creation wasn't a building. It was my son, Marcus Hawthorne. I still remember the first time I put a pencil in his hand. He was 6. He didn't draw stick figures like other kids. He drew shapes, boxes stacked on boxes, bridges with impossible arches. I told everyone, he's got the eye. Maybe I told myself that more than anyone else. I gave him everything I never had. Private schools, tutors, Ivy League education, summers interning at my firm where people twice his age treated him like royalty because of his last name. I thought I was helping him. I didn't realize I was burying him alive under my expectations. Marcus was brilliant, but quiet, observant. He listened more than he spoke. When he smiled, it never quite reached his eyes. I noticed that, but I ignored it. Fathers are good at ignoring warning signs when the story in their head feels better. The crown jewel of my career was Hawthorne Tower, a twisting, eco-integrated high-rise designed to breathe with the city, solar glass, vertical gardens, rainwater reclamation spiraling through the structure like veins. It wasn't just a building. It was my manifesto. And I handed it to Marcus. "You're ready," I told him, my hand heavy on his shoulder. "This is how legacies are built." He nodded, said all the right things, but something flickered behind his eyes. Not gratitude, something sharper. I didn't see it then. I should have. The first crack appeared months later. Small things. Meetings rescheduled without telling me. Financial reports that felt off. Marcus brushing me aside when I asked questions. "Relax, Dad. I've got it handled." Then came the night everything changed. It was late autumn. Rain slammed against the windows of my home office, the city glowing wet and blurred beyond the glass. I was alone, reviewing blueprints, when Marcus walked in unannounced. No knock, no greeting. He stood there, soaked, jaw tight. "You've been hiding money," he said. No accusation, a statement. My stomach dropped. I tried to explain. The offshore account was old inheritance money, untouched, meant for his children someday, legal, declared, boring. But he wasn't listening. Something had already decided itself inside him. A week later, federal agents kicked in my door at dawn. Handcuffs bit into my wrists while my wife Lydia stood frozen in the hallway, robe hanging loose, disbelief pouring out of her eyes. I kept saying, "There's been a mistake. But mistakes don't come with search warrants. The headlines didn't wait for truth. Architectural icon charged in massive embezzlement scheme. Partners vanished overnight. Clients canceled contracts. The tower was frozen mid-construction, a wounded giant clawing at the sky. And Marcus? He testified against me. On the stand, he looked smaller than I remembered, fragile. His voice cracked as he spoke about discovering irregularities and doing the right thing. The courtroom ate it up. A son standing up to a corrupt father. It was perfect theater. When our eyes met, there was no hesitation, no guilt, only relief. That's when I understood. This wasn't about money. It was about erasing me. The conviction came fast. 2 years in Joliet. My firm dissolved. Lydia filed for divorce before sentencing. She said she didn't recognize the man I'd become. I wanted to tell her I didn't recognize the world anymore. Prison strips you down to essentials: concrete, noise, time, and rage you have nowhere to put. That's where I met Rico, and that's where the man I used to be finally died. Prison doesn't change you overnight. It erodes you slowly, like water through stone. Every day strips something away. Your name, your routine, your illusions, until all that's left is what you really are. Joliet smelled like bleach and rust and old regrets. The first month, I barely spoke. I watched, listened, counted time by meals and lights-out bells. Rage lived in my chest like a trapped animal, slamming itself against my ribs with nowhere to go. That's how you survive, by not wasting energy. Rico noticed me before I noticed him. He was mid-40s, sharp eyes, always smiling like he knew something you didn't. White-collar guy. Fraud. Identity theft. Corporate sabotage. He didn't look like a criminal, which is why he was a good one. "You're the architect," he said one night in the yard. Not a question. Word travels fast in places like that. I nodded. "Funny thing about systems," he said, staring at the fences. "They all look solid until you learn where the access points are." I didn't trust him at first, but prison gives you 2 currencies, cigarettes and knowledge. Rico traded in the second. He taught me how money moves digitally, how emails can be manufactured, how audits can be steered, how truth is less important than documentation. I thought I was learning how Marcus framed me. What I was really learning was how he was building his future. Because while I counted days behind concrete walls, Marcus was out there living my life. I found out through newspapers at first. Apex Architects launches with bold vision. The photos showed him in suits that fit too well, standing in front of renderings that felt familiar. My lines, my concepts, slightly altered, just enough to pass as original. The final blow came from a gossip column, folded into the back of a paper. Marcus Hawthorne weds Lydia Hawthorne in rooftop ceremony. Rooftop of my tower. The unfinished spire that once carried my name. I stared at that article until the words blurred. Something inside me went quiet, not numb, focused. That was the moment revenge stopped being emotional. It became architectural. I got out in spring of 2025 with a cardboard box and a parole officer who couldn't pronounce my name. No firm, no license, no friends. The city I helped shape didn't recognize me. So I stopped recognizing myself. I became E. Thorne. Cheap apartment, burner phone, cash-only work sketching for developers who didn't ask questions. During the day, I survived. At night, I studied Marcus's empire like a blueprint laid flat under harsh light. Apex was growing too fast. Corners were being cut, permits rushed, materials substituted, things you don't notice until stress tests start failing. With Rico's guidance, I slipped inside their systems, quietly, patiently. I didn't destroy anything. I adjusted. A decimal here, a tolerance there, enough to cause delays, cost overruns, suspicion. Then I started whispering. Anonymous tips to inspectors, concerns to lenders. Nothing dramatic, just enough smoke to force them to look for fire. Marcus felt it. I could tell. His interviews changed. The confidence cracked. The smile tightened. Then I found the real gold. Emails proving he'd knowingly approved substandard materials. Lab reports buried. Kickbacks funneled through shell accounts. He wasn't just stealing my work. He was risking lives. That's when I went public. I sent everything to a journalist I trusted once upon a lifetime ago, gave her receipts, timelines, proof so clean it couldn't be ignored. The headline hit like a wrecking ball, Apex projects under fire for safety violations. The city froze his sites. Lawsuits stacked. Investors fled. I watched from a cafe across the street as Marcus exited his building, pale, phone glued to his ear, the world collapsing faster than he could talk his way out of it. But I wasn't finished, because systems don't fall until the personal ones do. And Marcus's weakest structure wasn't steel or concrete, it was his secrets. By the time Apex started bleeding publicly, Marcus was already bleeding privately. He just didn't know it yet. Secrets have weight. Stack enough of them, and the structure always fails. Once I was inside his systems, the rest came easily. I didn't rush it. Rushing is how buildings fail. I cataloged everything. Affairs hidden behind burner emails, accounts disguised as consulting fees, quiet payments to silence complaints from junior engineers who asked too many questions. The hardest part wasn't the hacking. It was watching my former life unfold without me, watching Lydia smile beside him in photos, my old laugh lines echoed in his face, watching my name repurposed, rebranded, repackaged as if I'd never existed. Their son, his son, was named Elias. That one almost broke me. But anger is fuel, not direction. Direction comes from clarity. I sent Lydia one message, no threats, no explanations, just evidence, organized, time-stamped, undeniable, the same way I used to present to city planning boards. She didn't call Marcus first. She called a lawyer. Within weeks, the marriage cracked open. Publicly at first, statements about irreconcilable differences. Privately, it was war, custody filings, asset freezes, questions she could no longer unask. Then the authorities came. Not because of me, because once the press starts pulling threads, institutions panic, audits expand, inspectors get brave, and suddenly the same system that buried me turned its full attention on him. I didn't attend Marcus's arrest. I didn't need to. I saw the footage later, hands cuffed, head down, that same courthouse I once walked into believing truth would save me. It didn't save him either. Apex folded within months. Lawsuits devoured what little remained. Investors testified. Employees turned state's evidence. The story flipped completely. architect faces prison for fraud and endangerment. He was sentenced to Joliet. Same walls, same gates, same air that taught me how to wait. I thought I'd feel triumph. I didn't. I felt tired. Revenge doesn't heal. It clarifies. It removes the question of what if and leaves you alone with what now. I disappeared again, this time by choice. No headlines, no statements, no victory lap. I rebuilt quietly. A small practice, modest homes, community centers, shelters, places meant to hold people, not egos. Veterans came to me, single mothers, families who'd been overlooked because their dreams didn't sparkle enough for developers. I charged less, listened more, and for the first time in decades, my work felt honest. Sometimes, late at night, I think about Marcus, about whether he understands now, about whether prison taught him anything the way it taught me. I don't visit, I don't write. Some structures are better left abandoned. Chicago still stands. The wind still cuts sharp. Hawthorne Tower remains unfinished, a skeleton against the skyline, a reminder that ambition without integrity collapses eventually. As for me, I breathe easier now. If you're reading this because someone you trusted hollowed you out, hear me clearly. You don't get justice by becoming a monster. You get it by becoming precise, by waiting, by building something they can never touch. Because in the end, the most devastating revenge isn't destruction, it's survival.